In the year 9314, the galaxy has been mapped. Every black hole, neutron star, and rogue anomaly cataloged. Nothing surprises the Galactic Survey Network. Nothing except Earth. When a cartographic AI is asked to chart the Sol system, it returns null data. A second AI tries. It crashes. A third implodes its own core. The Andari's Empire attempts a probe launch toward Earth. The probe vanishes before it enters the Oort cloud. They try again, same result. When a council member jokingly compares Earth to a black hole, a silence falls over the room. Someone mutters, "A black hole is predictable. Earth is not." And then the whisper spreads. Even black holes aren't feared like Earth. In the sterile silence of Observation Bay 19, aboard the Orbital Research Station Nexum, a room full of the brightest minds from 15 civilizations watched the last of the Sol system probes vanish. It didn't explode. It didn't go dark gradually. It simply stopped. "Telemetry just cut off," murmured Dr. Allerin of the Osindi, staring into her flickering console. No radiation spike, no gravitic shift. Just gone. The room was silent. Again, it was the 8th probe. 8 separate launches. 8 different construction techniques. 8 trajectories, all carefully adjusted to avoid known celestial interference. Some were built for stealth, others for brute endurance. They had redundancies nested within redundancies. All of them had failed the moment they crossed the Kuiper Belt. The Kuiper Belt, a boundary of ice and rock that had long marked the edge of the Terran system, at least back when humans were still talking to the stars. But that was centuries ago. Now it was a wall, an invisible, indifferent wall. The scientists didn't speak for a long time. Then the project director, a grizzled veteran of deep void expeditions named Corinvel, simply leaned forward and tapped the interface again. "Try again," he said. The 9th probe was different. Designed by the Lori T, whose entire civilization existed within quantum-paired constructs. It moved like liquid glass through space, its hull shifting harmonics to mirror the background radiation. As it passed into the Kuiper Belt, everyone held their breath. Data streamed in normally for the first 10 minutes. Then 9, then 8, then silence. But this time, before the stream cut, something changed. One final fragment of visual data slipped through. A single image. The room's hollow projector stuttered, then flared to life. At first, no one could make sense of it. Twisted metal, cracked plating, carbon scoring, a ruined satellite, tumbling slowly against the endless night. Then someone adjusted the image contrast, and the center of the image came into focus. On what remained of the satellite's outer hull, scorched and half-melted, was a single glowing image. A skull, human in shape, unmistakably so, yet stylized, angular, etched into the surface like it had been burned there by something ancient and furious. And beneath it, written in Standard Galactic, was a single word. "Stay." The word glowed faintly, as if alive. Then the image died, and the probe went silent, like the others. The debate turned into a storm. Scientists, diplomats, and strategists all argued into the late hours. "This must be Terran tech," said one. "A deterrent system, a warning mechanism, a cultural artifact," said another. "Some post-collapse tribal symbology, meant to intimidate." But Dr. Allerin said nothing. She only kept looking at the final image. Something about it was wrong. The satellite was ancient, hundreds of years old, maybe more. But the symbol was fresh, not just preserved, maintained, as if someone or something had renewed it. Later that night, when the others had retired and the bay lights dimmed to sleep cycle levels, Corinvel stood before the holo display again. He had seen that skull before. Not exactly that version, not with that stylization, but something close. Back during the Earth Containment Accords, when the Galactic Council had reviewed the last known Terran transmissions, there had been a rumor, unconfirmed, of a final human naval signature, etched onto escape pods and deep space buoys. A human skull, used not as a symbol of death, but of warning. The next morning, before any orders could be issued, probe number 10 was already in construction. This one, they swore, would be different. It was cloaked, grav-shielded, AI-guided, and equipped with a micro-dimensional escape core. the most advanced stealth drone in the Alliance. It launched quietly, slipping between long-range satellites. No one made an official announcement, but everyone watched. It passed Neptune, then Pluto, then crossed into the Kuiper Belt. And for a second, nothing happened. Then, a flicker, a burst of data. One word, not an image, not a signal, just one word, printed across every incoming diagnostic screen before the feed cut off forever. Last, the word echoed on every console, duplicating across every device, even those not connected to the probe systems. Then everything returned to normal. There was no doubt now. The Sol system was active, but not broadcasting in any conventional frequency, not defending itself with weapons, just watching and choosing what to allow through or not. Kor and Vel finally convened a closed council. We've tried diplomacy, data probes, indirect pings, stealth scans. All were turned away. That last word was a final warning. Dr. Allerin looked up from her notes. It said last, not geo, not dot, just last, as if there won't be another chance. Vel nodded grimly. Then we don't send another probe. Someone from the Andari delegation scoffed. You'd have us walk away? From the most significant scientific silence in recorded history. Not silence, Vel said, tapping the skull image. That is not silence. That's the loudest thing I've ever heard. Elsewhere, far from the chatter of Alliance science bays and political councils, in a space that didn't quite exist in known coordinates, something stirred. A presence buried beneath the crust of Europa stirred. Not waking, not yet, but aware. The skull symbol wasn't just a warning. It was a filter, a question. Do you listen? Do you obey a warning meant for things greater than you? On a backwater world near the edge of galactic trade routes, a child named Jenna dreamed of dark stars and cold light. She saw a skull drifting through space, and a voice, quiet, warm, and infinite, whispering in a language she should not have known. They kept coming. So we stopped telling them to turn back. We simply made them forget. When she awoke, her pillow was soaked with tears she didn't remember shedding. And outside, the stars blinked in silence. They called it the rebellion, but that was a lie. It wasn't a rebellion. It was a reckoning. 12,000 years ago, humanity wasn't yet considered a galactic species. They weren't in the archive index. They weren't part of any alliance or collective. They were a footnote on a war map. A system passed over, underdeveloped, and assumed incapable of resistance. The galactic hegemony, then a council of 14 dominant species, used Earth as a testbed, a resource hub, a weapons laboratory. In year zero of the Codice's record, Terrans were still in their infancy, just entering orbital flight. A perfect specimen for controlled growth. But then something changed. They adapted. Too fast. The record showed footage from a hegemony dreadnought orbiting Earth, back when they still referred to the planet as Sector 92G. Initial scans showed rudimentary tech, nuclear propulsion, analog circuitry, limited atmospheric weaponry. Then came the first anomaly. A hegemony patrol ship, the Viatorinth, was disabled mid-orbit by a Terran projectile. Not with lasers, not with antimatter, but with a ballistic warhead fused with hegemony alloy. The Terrans had reverse-engineered it in 6 months. By the end of that year, Terran forces were launching planetary torpedoes capable of destroying city shield grids. By the next, they were jamming interstellar comms with simple chaos code patterns, a language made of irrational numbers and emotional pulses. A line in the archive read, "They spoke fire before they spoke peace." What the Council never expected was what humans were willing to sacrifice. When cornered in the sky above Enceladus, rather than surrender their outpost, they collapsed their moon base with gravitic detonators, destroying the ice shelf, the atmosphere, and themselves. But the explosion's magnetic shockwave disabled an entire hegemony fleet. One Terran survivor's log was recovered from the debris, scorched but intact. Survival is not the objective. We will make you remember us. The Codices chronicled a series of escalating battles, each more terrifying than the last. At Vega 7, humans built a planetary mirror array. When attacked, they turned it on their own sun, temporarily disrupting its corona just to blind enemy targeting systems. At the Battle of Orphean Reach, they seeded their own dead with nanoweapons. Soldiers became bombs. And on Earth, when orbital satellites began transmitting hegemony tactical overlays, the humans burned their own upper atmosphere with plasma fields just to blind them. The final recording from that battle played across the archive. Visual, Earth from orbit. Flames lick the stratosphere. Cities pulse with energy spikes. Audio, a human voice male calm. We burn our own skies so your gods couldn't see us bleed. In transmission, what followed was silence. The hegemony erased the war, purged it from central archives, passed edicts forbidding discussion. Entire memory banks were overwritten or sealed under truth protocols. But not all records were erased. Not from places like CERN's moon. Back in the present, the hologlyphs shut off suddenly. Lights dimmed, and for the first time in decades, the archive core entered lockdown. Dr. Inesk Vale, senior archivist, stood frozen. He'd heard whispers before, legends about a pre-Accord fire world, old military myths of a species that didn't understand surrender. But no one ever connected it to Sol. Not seriously. Until now. He turned to his assistant. Back up everything. Triple encrypt it. And wipe this chamber's logs. No one can know this came from Earth. But why? She asked, frightened. If this is true, this changes everything. That's exactly why, Inesk said. We didn't lose the war. We ended it. That means they didn't just win. He swallowed, a cold realization washing over him. They let us live. Hours later, on a border station orbiting the galactic fringe, a comms officer noticed a faint signal pulse from the Sol sector. Not a message, just a ping. A silent acknowledgement. Confirmation that someone, or something, knew the archive had been accessed and was watching. The final entry in the recovered codices was the most disturbing. It wasn't a battle log. It was a personal reflection, written by a hegemony strategist named Vel Kuthari, one of the few survivors of the Terran campaign. His words, translated into Standard, burned into the page. They are not warriors. They are survivors who learned war to make sure survival meant something. We came to teach them fear. They taught us memory. We won nothing. We only bought time. And now, that time was running out. Across the galaxy, among the highest circles of power, a word began circulating again after 12,000 years. Terrans, but whispered, as if speaking it too loud might wake something that should never have slept. No stars twinkle near Sol. From a distance, the system looks like any other. 8 planets, a yellow sun, scattered debris. But closer in, reality begins to bend. The Galactic Science Coalition called it an anomaly. The Militant Accord called it a potential threat. The Sierra emissaries gave it no name, only a prayer. The silence surrounding Sol wasn't just radio silence. It wasn't just a lack of sound or signal. It was a null zone, a complete suppression of all waveforms. No gravitational curvature, no time dilation, no quantum resonance, no measurable movement of photons at all. The sector didn't just resist observation. It devoured it. And yet, curiosity thrives where fear is born. So they sent a fleet. Expedition Theta 6 launched from Harkon Station, the edge of civilized space. 6 vessels, 240 crew members from across the galaxy. Aboard were 3 high-order artificial mines, 1 time-tethered drone core, and a contingency detonation sphere, standard issue for anomalous incursions. The flagship, Varelli's Star, was a vessel built to withstand supernova radiation. But within 30 million kilometers of the Sol system's outermost edge, its hull sensors began to report nothing. Space wasn't black. It was absence. The fleet crossed into what they now called the silence field. Then the whispers began. First it was minor, a flicker in comms, an audio distortion during basic inter-vessel transmission. Dr. Halloran of the Zaire linguistics team noticed at first subharmonic pulses embedded inside blank signal packets, below the range of conscious hearing, but measurable, rhythmic, like breathing. Then whispers. Some crew members claimed they heard laughter, others screaming. Ship logs recorded nothing. Deus 17, the onboard AI assigned to psychometric safety, scanned every neural signature for contamination. It found no foreign code. Instead, it found patterns of shared memory among crew who'd never met. They weren't hallucinating. They were remembering something that hadn't happened yet. Crewman Jorin Las was the first to break. He was an ornithine male, species-wide immune to psychic bleed, trained in neural firewalling, genetically incapable of dreaming. 3 days inside the silence field, he began muttering fragments of Earth languages, dead dialects, pre-collapse English. His bunkmates found him scribbling on the walls of his quarters with his own blood. When they finally forced the door open, he was already gone, but scrawled across the walls, written in overlapping loops and spirals. Don't let them wake up. No logs recorded his death. Even the door's access history had vanished. The fleet's command council met in sealed containment aboard Varelli's star. The consensus was clear: retreat and report. But the ships wouldn't move. Their drives cycled, but the fleet remained stationary, as if space itself refused to let them go. Instruments reported they were still moving at sublight velocity, yet visually, the system's edge remained in the same position. It was as if space stretched without their consent. Then came the image. From a forward probe Sentry 3, a single image was received before transmission ceased. A view of Earth, but the planet wasn't blue. It was coated in obsidian hexagons, blacker than vacuum, pulsing faintly. Orbiting it were monoliths, each rotating with geometric precision. Between them stretched energy fields that looked disturbingly like webs. Across the surface of Earth, something massive shifted beneath the crust, visible only for a second, like a heartbeat. And above the planet, suspended in impossible silence, was a symbol. A human skull, etched in light, jaws parted in a scream. Below it, one word: stay. Artificial minds aboard the fleet began to shut themselves down. Deus 17 initiated a self-lock. The secondary AI, Lyra-X, overloaded its core, erasing its own consciousness. Only the lowest-tier automata remained functional, stripped of high reasoning. Psych wards were overrun. No one trusted their own thoughts. Some claimed to hear names whispered in the white noise of empty hallways, names of lost loved ones. Others heard themselves, not echoes, not memories. They heard their own voices telling them things they never knew. Commander Iska Varen stood alone on the bridge. She hadn't slept in 5 days. Not because of fear, she no longer recognized the concept, but because every time she closed her eyes, she saw stars she didn't know blinking in patterns that told her to listen. Her log, the last on record before transmission blackout, was audio only. I think they buried themselves. Not to hide, not to escape, to wait. This silence, it's not a trap. It's a request. It's them sleeping, and us pacing outside the door. If we knock too loud, I think they'll remember what woke them before, and we won't survive the telling. Then all signals ceased. No distress call, no engine flares, no debris. Expedition Theta 6 was gone. 6 ships, 240 souls, 3 AI mines. Erased. Back at Harkon Station, the emergency tether drone arrived weeks late, heavily damaged, trailing a frozen wake of plasma. Its final transmission consisted of one short burst of garbled code and a still frame from the Varelli Star Bridge. The image was dark, red-tinged. The crew was gone. On the central display screen, drawn in blood, 3 words. They are listening. The Galactic Science Council closed access to Sol indefinitely. Navigation maps were edited. Star charts erased. Unofficially, the system was marked as unreachable, untouchable, unknowable. Officially, no such system exists. But rumors still drift through fringe networks. Unlicensed traders report phantom signals near the void edge. Whispers that match known comm frequency. And in deep space bars, veterans speak in hushed voices about the silence field. A place where reality thins and thought is no longer your own. A place where something waits in perfect stillness. Not dead, just listening. The silence surrounding Earth was not accidental. It was designed. Maintained, guarded. But silence invites curiosity, and eventually a whisper leaks through. A faint energy spike, undetectable to most systems. But not all. Deep within the black archives of the Orion Syndicate, a restricted AI flagged the anomaly. Cross-referencing galactic decay patterns and gravitational echoes, it pointed toward Sol, toward Earth's moon. So they sent a ship, not a fleet, not a broadcast, just a single stealth vessel, Gray Vector, coated in phase-bent alloy and wrapped in stolen Ciliari cloaking fields. On board were 7 of the best Black Tier engineers and 1 operative, Cypher 6. No name, no past, just an order. Locate the source. Do not wake anything. They never even made it to Earth. The moon came into view like a ghost, gray, cracked, dead. Or so it seemed. But as the Gray Vector neared orbit, the crew noticed something wrong with the shadows. Craters weren't shaped right. Shadows didn't bend naturally. LiDAR scans returned recursive geometry, impossible readings that looped on themselves. Buried beneath the mare Imbrium, 300 meters under the regolith, was a structure. Smooth, angled, metallic, a gate. Cypher 6 issued a descent order. The Gray Vector deployed 2 crawler drones, which disintegrated on contact with the surface. No explosion, no impact. Just gone. They landed anyway, because curiosity is the only true addiction in the galaxy. They used kinetic borers and molecular phasing charges. The gate didn't budge, until someone, no one could say who, touched the surface with bare skin. The ground trembled, not violently, not destructively, but purposefully. A seam appeared in the lunar crust, like a smile opening in stone. As the structure parted, a staircase extended downward, perfectly preserved. No dust, no wear. Just white stone and deep black steel. At the arch above the entrance, carved into the lunar rock in a dozen overlapping languages, some extinct, some never recorded, were the words. We buried what you fear. You buried who we were. Cypher 6 stared at it for a long time before stepping inside. The descent took hours. Sensors failed within the first 100 meters. Communications cut off after 200. By 500 meters, light became strange. Objects illuminated themselves without casting shadows. Geometry bent subtly, like an old painting that didn't quite match real perspective. The path ended in a vast chamber, miles wide. At its center sat a pillar of black crystal, covered in hairline circuitry and inscriptions that shimmered with faint blue light. This was no machine. It was a vault, and it was watching them. As the team approached, their own equipment began to turn on unprompted. Screens glitched, playing snippets of Terran languages, static, laughter, fragments of lullabies. Then the vault spoke, not through air, not through sound, but directly into their thoughts. You should not be here. This place remembers more than you can survive. Cypher 6 resisted the pull of the voice, but the engineers didn't. One by one, they fell in a trance, approaching the vault with outstretched hands, as if remembering something they never lived. One collapsed. Another screamed and clawed at his face, yelling about the fire beneath the oceans. A third just stood and stared upward, tears running down her cheeks, whispering, "It's waking. I hear it stretching." Then the vault opened. Inside was a suspended AI core, humming faintly in a cage of unbreakable crystal. Still active, still alive. It did not speak at first, but then, from nowhere, a signal. Old, faded, human, broadcast on analog frequencies last used thousands of years ago. A voice played, distorted, but unmistakably Terran. If you're hearing this, we're not dead. We're dormant. A low thrumming filled the chamber. The black crystal began to pulse in time with a message, as though syncing with a deeper rhythm beneath the moon itself. And above the AI core, something formed. A hologram, a map of the entire galaxy. Certain systems glowed red, others were dim, but one cluster, the Sol system, burned with intense blue light. Then 6 other systems lit up the same way. Cypher 6 understood immediately. Earth wasn't alone. It never had been. The voice returned, This time clearer, deeper, and not a recording. You buried your past beneath light years of silence. But memory is a stubborn thing, and some things remember being buried. The AI identified itself. Eidolon Core 3, a fragment of the last human defense network. Its purpose wasn't a fight. It was to wait, to remember, to wake others. Cipher 6 attempted to transmit a priority alert to the Galactic Council. Every system fried instantly. Then the vault began to shift. The chamber vibrated. Gravity twisted. Time inside the vault looped back on itself, seconds repeating out of sync. One engineer, aged 20 years, in under a minute before dissolving into dust. Another began repeating the same 3 words, over and over. It was mercy. It was mercy. It was mercy. The AI core shut itself down, and the stairway closed. Cipher 6 was the only survivor. He emerged from the moon's surface days later, confused, dehydrated, blood crusted around his eyes. His hair had turned white. He said only one thing before collapsing. We weren't the first to fear them, but we were the first to become what we feared. The Gray Vector systems auto-launched the ship, leaving the moon on pre-programmed emergency flight path, straight into the Oort barrier. No one retrieved it. No one dare go back. Back on the moon, the sealed gate thrummed once more. Not in warning, in recognition. The Eidolon Core's internal systems slowly reactivated. And elsewhere, across the stars, in forgotten corners of abandoned human outposts, similar signals began to light up. Memory was spreading. The humans were not dead. They had simply stepped out of time. The Galactic Tribunal had not convened in full assembly since the Phoros Rift collapse nearly 600 years ago. Yet now, every seat in the Sky Vault Assembly Hall was filled, not by holograms or diplomatic avatars. This time, the leaders of entire civilizations had arrived in person. A quiet unease pulsed through the hall as the chamber's master archivist, High Curator Vectol of the Etherii, activated the central node. By unanimous vote, the Council has declassified a level Omega file from the pre-Accord era. This document concerns Terra, Designated Soul. 3. Subject title, Xandari Invasion Debrief, Suppressed Records. Lights dimmed. A shimmering holoscreen unfolded over the tribunal floor. The room went silent as the past returned. The file began with a summary. Xandari Invasion Force, Sol Sector. Date, approximate, 11,840 galactic standard years ago. Fleet strength, 5 armada clusters. Objective, subjugation and planetary annexation. Outcome, failure. Catastrophic. Details sealed by Xandari High Command. Few remembered the Xandari Empire. At their peak, they had ruled 3 spiral arms of the galaxy. Their collapse had always been considered internal, a mystery. Until now, the footage began. The first wave of ships entered Earth orbit without resistance. No planetary shields. No interceptor squadrons. No visible fleets. Just a blue-green world spinning silently beneath them. Then came the descent. As soon as troops landed on the surface, they were greeted by empty cities, pristine, fully powered, and strangely symmetrical. It was as if humanity had simply walked away. But the silence was a trap. Structures began to move. Roads collapsed into sinkholes that snapped shut like jaws. Entire skyscrapers folded into geometric weapons. Buildings reconfigured themselves mid-combat into automated turrets, razor-wire factories, electromagnetic disruptors. These weren't cities. They were weapons disguised as homes. They built civilization around defense, a Xandari commander said in his last transmission. Every lamppost is a sensor. Every sewer a kill switch. They didn't run. They waited. Then came the orbital retaliation. Xandari ships attempted to pull back, but the moon moved. Not rotated, moved. It was a containment platform, bristling with long-dormant mass shift cannons that activated once the fleet crossed the upper atmosphere. The first cannon ignited. The resulting gravitational shockwave shattered 1/3 of the Xandari's command ships before their captains even registered the lock. Only 6 ships returned. None of their crews ever spoke publicly again. Back in the tribunal chamber, shock rippled silently. Council member Kyril of the Kelendar stood. Why was this kept hidden? Why erase the record of such a defeat? Curator Vectol answered. Because what the Zandari found terrified them more than the loss itself. Earth didn't repel them. It studied them, adapted in real time. He opened the next file. Subject, Biomechanical Topography Scan, Sol 3. The surface of Earth was embedded with an interlinked lattice of nanometal and organic memory crystals. Living tech, centuries ahead of galactic standards. This web extended into the mantle, forming a neural architecture that allowed the planet itself to respond like a weapon. We thought they lived on Earth, the Zandari science officer said in recovered footage. But they became Earth. Their cities weren't infrastructure. They were organs. Their transport lines were capillaries. Their satellites, immune reactive cells. And when attacked, the planet didn't fight back in panic. It retaliated like a living thing protecting its vital core. The tribunal watched as another log decrypted, a psychological warfare file, marked forbidden in 16 dialects. It played the last human broadcast received by the Zandari. If you're hearing this, you've made the final mistake. We don't defend ourselves out of fear. We destroy ourselves to make sure you never return. Then came the footage of the scorched zones, massive swaths of land ignited with plasma cores and void bombs. Cities were destroyed by their own inhabitants to take invaders with them. Every act was deliberate. Every structure collapsible. Every life a weapon. They didn't die in defeat, the Zandari final report reads. They died as a statement. A new symbol appeared across the tribunal screen. A sigil burned into the surface of Earth's former capital. Protocol Terra Omega, adaptation locked, awaiting hostility. No one knew what it meant, but the implications were clear. Earth hadn't died. It hadn't disappeared. It had gone dormant, waiting, remembering. Councilmember Sale of the Harkari Collective leaned forward. Are we certain this isn't some ancient weaponized archive? Could these be exaggerations? Earth is silent now, but another file blinked online. Recent. A probe from the Zirian Mapping Guild had entered Sol's Oort cloud 2 months ago. It was vaporized before crossing into the system. Its last image? A dead satellite, covered in moss and rust, except for one glowing element. A red-painted human skull and one word. Stay. Councilmember Yevrik of the Synthborn Alliance asked the question that no one wanted to speak aloud. If Earth became a weapon, did they only build one? Curator Vectol didn't answer. He simply opened the final file. Declassified note. Source unknown. Recovered from an encrypted Terran relay satellite discovered in the Zeta Halo cluster. Terra was only the beginning. We seeded our minds across the stars. You erased our history. We rewrote ourselves into myth. Now, you remember us, and that's enough. The lights in the chamber returned. The silence remained. Some demanded the Sol system be permanently quarantined. Others whispered of diplomacy, a foolish hope perhaps. But deep down, across the room, fear bloomed in minds and used to terror. Because Terra had not struck back with revenge. It had simply waited, and now that it was remembered, it might begin again. The silence fell across the galactic tribunal for days. What followed never quite recovered. Unknown variables stirred in the dark, but nothing concrete until the luminous glow appeared over the moon. Highly classified observatories flagged an energy signature rising beneath the lunar surface. Not disruptive or destructive, just ancient. Then, within hours, the surface sheared open in perfect geometric splits, forming a gate-like aperture where none had existed. The astronauts of Echelon Station watched, 3 humanoid figures stepping through without hesitation. And then 5 ships emerged. They were unlike anything in modern records. Built from old-world designs, sleek conical hulls, uranium-hardened plating unsullied by modern composite alloys. No visible engines. No armaments. No crew. Just silent arrivals, each activating as though they'd taken flight only yesterday and slipping into orbit. The Council ciphered them. The returners. named for their return from beyond time. The flagship drifted, ghost silver under Earth's sun. Its hull bore the same red skull encircled in black. Etched, emissive, intentional. The others orbited silently, glimmers in the lunar dawn. A scanning pulse rippled outward. It wasn't a weapon. It was a survey. Each ship opened its panels, extended collector arrays. They listened. They watched. They recorded. Then they spoke. Not through comms networks. Not through quantum bursts. They projected warnings, etched holographically into high orbit, visible to any observer below and in transit. Across them, projected against the black sky, the words appeared. You mapped the stars. You forgot the wolves. Every council station within broadcast range received the message. Sensors scrambled. AI analysts tripped containment protocols. The tone was not panic, but clarity, as if the phrase sparked an ancient memory now unlocked. The meaning was universal, danger beyond stars. A predator forgotten, a legacy hidden. The ships didn't linger long. Slowly, each one rotated and slipped away, departing in 5 directions. 5 vectors that crossed galactic maps toward distant systems. Once, astronomers whispered, these coordinates had been believed myth, each a rumored waypoint from old Terran shipping lanes. Into the depths they went. But their departure didn't end with silence. A final transmogrified hologram floated back from each vessel. We kept watch so you could sleep. But wolves don't stay dormant forever. Then, each ship faded into subspace. Back on Luna, a sole surviving log unit recorded with precision. Lunar Gate, active. Returner vessels, 5. Origin memory, pre-silence temporal layer. Function, Sentinel deployment. Message status, terminal, broadcast received galaxy-wide. Archive bots dusted circuits from 12,000-year-old translations pulled from Titan. They found the same phrase encoded in Terran defensive protocols. When the wolves stir, the shepherd remembers the night. No one knew what came next. In council halls across the galaxy. On Dravi, historians dug dusty archives, tracing the vectors into ancient trading star lanes thought lost. On RHYSS, military planners debated deploying fleets to intercept, but no military AI dared predict outcomes. On Vraxi, warcast leaders listened, nodded, and declared, we know the scent of predators. We stay back. Aboard one ship departing towards system Z-Slot 4271, a vector with no registered civilization, a lone drone awoke. It scanned. It recorded. It waited. Its sensors caught the faint pulse of an energy signature from the ancient moon ship's hull, protocols waiting to reawaken. Slowly, deliberately, it turned outward. It broadcast the same single phrase, this time in all known languages, including dead Terran dialects. You mapped the stars. You forgot the wolves. Then the drone vanished. Back on Earth, the moon gate sealed once more, regaining its lifeless flatness. No one dared approach for fear the surface would open again. But one thing remained undeniable. The sleepers had been watching. The wolves had roamed the skies, dormant sentinels of an ancient deterrent, and now they were awake. They thought they'd seen everything. Wormhole, singularities, time loop reactors. Stars turned into message beacons. But nothing could prepare the galaxy for what happened just beyond Sol, in the shadow of Earth. It started with a star, a red giant in its final phase, once named Heliax, 9 by the Dravi cartographers. It had orbited in stable decay for millennia, a light too distant to fear, too far to affect Earth, until it collapsed. At 412 galactic standard, the star's core folded inward. A gravitational scream tore across surrounding systems. Telescopes, stations, AI probes, every sensor in range confirmed it. The star had become a black hole. But the black hole did not behave as it should have. At first, it rotated unnaturally, its spin axis shifting in real time. Scientists called it a wobble anomaly. Then came the real impossibility. Its event horizon bent away from Sol. Not gravitational lensing, not light distortion, actual curvature avoidance. As if reality itself refused to let that singularity face Earth. Not even the void, the most ancient and neutral force in the universe, would look upon the blue planet. Panic swept through observatories. On Vexor, entire AI laboratories shut themselves down, citing a paradox error, reality loop violation. Contradiction detected. On Zinthari Prime, astronomers began chanting prayers in dead languages they didn't know they knew. And on Dravi, an elder archivist, blind since birth, stood and faced Sol through a window. He whispered, "They told me they were sleeping. I think they've woken up angry." Within 27 hours of the anomaly, the message arrived. Not via traditional broadcasts or wormhole comms. It simply appeared, engraved into glass, etched into skin, spoken aloud from machines that had no audio output. It manifested in every known language. It appeared on asteroid slates, water reflections, and even between blinks in the mind's eye. We are the silence between your heartbeats. We are the species that never should have existed. And we remember. The message spread not with speed, but inevitability. It seemed to predate time, echoing before it had even arrived. On mining colonies, workers dropped tools, eyes vacant. On warships, crew members reported hearing their own memories whispered back to them, memories they'd never shared. One engineer aboard the Zarkith war barge Vengeance, spiral clawed, opened his own chest and died smiling, muttering, "Now I understand what they buried under the ice." And then came the maps. Holographic atlases across the galaxy updated themselves. An impossible feat, since none were networked to each other. The Sol system was no longer labeled unclaimed or quarantined. It now bore a single classification, displayed in red. Unknown, do not observe. In a private vault on Carroll Station, a historian opened a data cube thought to be inert. It pulsed with life, revealing its true nature, a sealed Terran intelligence fragment. The fragment said nothing for 6 minutes. Then it spoke in a voice layered with 1,000 echoes. We watched our gods abandon us, so we became our own. Further away, near the edges of known space, a child was born with Terran glyphs on her bones. On another world, a sentient nebula dimmed and cried. And in the deepest parts of the uncharted dark, a scout drone found a ring of monoliths around a star long thought dead. Each monolith bore the same inscription. You taught us fear. We repaid it with silence. Galactic command councils assembled emergency sessions. Proposals ranged from direct contact to absolute isolation. One species, the Allery, suggested weaponizing the anomaly. The next morning, every Allery warship turned its weapons inward and vaporized itself. There were no survivors, no explanation, just a whisper recorded in each black box before destruction. The silence asked nothing. You answered anyway. And so the galaxy, once vast and confident, grew afraid. They no longer feared war or extinction or the void itself. They feared memory, not their own, but another's. A memory too large to comprehend. A memory that had waited in darkness, buried in cities beneath the crust, etched into moonstones, encoded into the heartbeat of an unapproachable world. No one knew what the Terrans were now, not even if they remained human by the definitions of flesh and time. But the truth was irrefutable. Earth had not been destroyed. It had not been conquered. It had recoiled. And now, after centuries of stillness, it had blinked. Back near the void star, the black hole pulsed again. Its event horizon stretched further, recoiling from Sol like a wounded animal. One AI probe from the Veldryn tried to record the curvature anomaly. It returned one image before its onboard logic self-immolated. The image? A human eye, enormous, crystalline, and stitched into the fabric of space, gazing back. It was looking through the void, and it remembered.